So hi, everybody. I'm Denise Ellsworth with the Ohio State University Department of Entomology and OSU Extension. Thanks so much for having me come in and talk about some of the pollinator outreach we have happening here through the Department of Entomology. I have it kind of broken down into a couple main areas. So I'm going to talk about recruiting and supporting our bee fans, supporting education and demonstration gardens across the state, supporting community science, and then ways that we provide educational resources through our website. So I think one of the things I love the most about my job is that I get to interact with so many what I call bee fans of all levels. Some are students at OSU, some are master gardeners, Ohio volunteer naturalists, OCVNers. Some states call them master naturalists. I work with a lot of beekeepers and just all around naturalists, folks who are interested in pollinators. Maybe they don't know much about bees. And I love bringing bee biology and bee identification to them and talking about ways that they can make changes in their own habitat to help pollinators. We're lucky in Ohio that both in our Master Gardener program and in our OCVN, the Certified Volunteer Naturalist program, pollinators and insects are an integral part of those programs. And so I'm often asked to come into Master Gardener groups doing their training. The OCVNers, maybe they're having their initial training or they're having a continuing education event. And I come in and, a lot of times we go outside, go into the field and learn about bees. In fact, last night I just had a program with the volunteer naturalist where we went through a lot of questions. I brought in some pinned samples so they could see what some of the bees look like, gave them bee cards and had a nice kind of interactive, even though it was chilly and cold, we were inside, but a lot of good interest and discussion about pollinators and why bees are so important. So for a lot of those volunteers who come to me kind of at a, maybe they're just getting introduced to the world of bees and pollinators. They kind of want to go that next step. And we're lucky that they are kind of the key to that outreach. I'm doing a lot of train the trainer work. And so we have a program in Ohio called the Volunteer Pollinator Specialization. And our specializations in the state are usually about a year-long programs. They started back in the 90s. We've done weeds and insects and invasive plants and lots of other specializations, kind of in-depth training for master gardeners. And so from the time I've been in the Department of Entomology, so about 10 years, we've run a yearly volunteer pollinator specialist class. So it's about 40 people who come together from across the state. Typically, we meet once a month at different locations. They learn how to use their nets. They learn to collect bees in vials, how to chill them down. We've done some really great in-person ID workshops. You see pictured here Olivia Carroll, who has come to Ohio multiple times to teach bee identification to these and other groups. And so then we ask those folks to turn around and give hours teaching other people about pollinators. And we're really wide open with that. We don't track that. It's kind of on the honor system, but they can work with, 4-H groups, with school groups, with their home programs, master gardeners, volunteer naturalists. A lot of them do displays and events. They may have demonstration gardens. So it's really a wonderful way to do that kind of train the trainer outreach. And I get to meet some fabulous people from across the state. It's pretty inspiring to see how they develop their interests and kind of keep going from there. So in 2020, of course, we had a lot of things change with COVID. We had scheduled a volunteer pollinator specialization program that was going to start in, we actually got one session in before everything shut down. And so like a lot of organizations, we went online. We had an online pollinator class that, went for most of the year. And again, focused on that bee biology and identification. We had a lot of guest presenters come in. They were encouraged to create some collections on their own, to get involved in community science. So a way that, we could take what was making our in-person programming impossible and kind of make at least a plus out of that and be together online. We also conducted a small program called the Eastern Bees 101, where we had, again, the wonderful Olivia Carroll came in and taught it through videos of some basics of bee identification. And then we had a group that went through that, participated in some quizzes, and really learned to at least, start on a fundamental way, attack the problem of what bee is this. So in coordination with those online programs, as many groups did, we turned to webinars. And I've been doing webinars with beekeepers for a number of years, but back in the day, we were lucky to get 50 people in a room. And with the pandemic, everybody was looking for some kind of educational programming, something to keep them busy, kind of get their minds off what was happening in the wider world. And so we began to offer these series of webinar speaker series and other short courses online. Thanks to some grant funding, we were able to draw some really wonderful presenters to teach those webinars. And so we've been able to have dozens of webinars and then recordings of those webinars posted on our YouTube page. And so it's neat to see those kind of live as well. Some of our recordings have had thousands of watches online. And so even if people can't come and participate in person with those webinars, they can come back and watch the recordings. And actually, a lot of groups have used those recordings for their own Master Gardener training, their own naturalist program, for their Audubon meeting, what have you. And I encourage people, share them far and wide. That's really what they're for. So last year we coordinated this, the Bee short course for community scientists. So again, an online webinar-based program. This one met monthly for 7 months. We had a great collection of speakers come together and really talk about, the focus was building those foundational skills to help people who are interested kind of go to that next level. So wherever people came in, we tried to, take them a little bit further, give them some ideas for how they can work in their own communities with community scientists, whether it's their park system or participating in a larger program. So that was a really successful program. We had about 3,000 participants in that one. And a lot of our participants were interested in bumblebees. And so we coordinated this year, ongoing right now, is our bumblebee short course for community scientists. Again, about 4,000 participants who've signed up. We get about 1,000 to 1,500 people there live on our Friday webinars, which is really exciting. And, it's great to see that enthusiasm. And then on this website, we've linked the recordings, papers, videos, other resources, so that even if folks can't join us live, they can watch the recordings and come back and continue learning about bumblebees. And again, our goal is to provide some of those community science outlets so that folks can just jump in and, begin observing with iNaturalist, or use Bumblebee Watch, or do a Queen Quest, and help researchers learn more, about what's happening out there in all the places that they can't physically get to. So training bee fans is a big component of what I do. But I also try to support these education and demonstration gardens. We have kind of a network set up across the state because, again, I'm one person. I can't get out there, obviously, and care for a bunch of different plots. And so we've tried to give people the tools to enhance projects they already have going, or a little bit of incentive to start an education demonstration garden near them. So thanks to a grant from the USDA, we're able to propagate and distribute some native perennial plugs. So we have a colleague who's an incredible plant propagator. He is just amazing at the quality of plugs that he grows. And so we're usually, in a non-COVID situation, able to interact with about 60 gardens across the state who come and get free flats of these native perennials and use them then in their demonstration sites. So we're not using this as a means to intentionally grow habitat. 10 flats of 36s isn't going to do anything for an acre of habitat. But our goal is to inspire people, to show them what some of these native plants look like, to to have this a spot that people can do educational programs. Maybe they have displays or events happening there at their site. Maybe it's at the county extension office or the county fair or at a local school, someplace where people come and can learn more about these plants, can see the bees and the butterflies there on the flowers, and learn more about, what is a specialist bee and what can I do for bumblebees, and what are all the things that are happening out there because we've added some of these cool native plants. And so this network, as I said, of 50 plus demonstration gardens across the state, those are all folks who are really excited about pollinators already. And so, and we provide signage, some of those, real estate yard signs, simple signage that actually is quite durable, lasts many years with good color out there in their plots. But I wanted to help those who are already in the choir, right? They already know about pollinators and they're enthusiastic, but how can we help people make that jump to the greater world of biodiversity, about native plants and how those linkages are so important? And so the last few years, I've been trying to kind of expand my message that, yes, the pollinators are great. These plants are awesome for bees and butterflies and flies. But what about all those other creatures, those beneficial insects, those predators, the wasps that are out there, the hummingbirds that are visiting the plants, the songbirds that use those plants for seed or for nesting material, or, for insects to feed their young. And so we've tried to kind of expand that idea of it's not just for pollinators, it's about biodiversity. And I've been trying to use that term to help people grasp that wider concept that, what we do in the backyard or in the community garden plot really makes a wider difference. And it's not that you have to plant only natives, but native plants are really a link in that wider food web. So coming up, we're going to be embarking on this OSU Plant by Numbers project. And I really want to reach out to give a shout out to the City of Lexington Parks for their Plant by Numbers project, which I saw in action about maybe 5 years ago. They have these great handouts, colorful, easy to understand pictures of the flowers, and then some of those designs planted out in different parks. Just a real easy, here's how you start with native plants, right? Because sometimes that's people don't know what plant goes with what, and how do I get things to not look so big and so weedy. And so we're borrowing with credit to the Lexington Plant by Numbers idea, focusing on Ohio specific plants, native plants that grow well in sun, that are great for pollinators, and can also look really nice in the landscape. So we have different themes that we're unveiling with this project. So the first two are specialist bees and bumblebees. So plants that are good for those pollinators, and we'll have signage that'll help, what is a specialist bee and what do bumblebees need, and what is it about these plants that make them special. So thanks to this grant for the next 2 years, then we'll have 2 more themes that we'll be able to unveil with some of these handout materials. So that's a pretty exciting growth out of that education demonstration garden idea. I also try to make the Bee Lab website be kind of a clearinghouse for educational materials and resources. And so a lot of resources across the country, I'm trying to pull links and documents together. So anyone who visits the Bee Lab website and wants to learn more about plants for pollinators, or about, how to identify native bees, or, what resources are there for creating a meadow, or putting pollinator habitat on a farm or in a community garden site. My goal is to have this kind of be a clearinghouse, so that you can go there, you can find OSU resources, but other resources, Xerces, Pollinator Partnership, and more. All these great materials are out there, and so I try to pull those together. We have some bee cards and bee posters, some Ohio bee guides, and as I said, then links to lots of other resources as well. We've been really active in community science here in the state, and that really came out of our bumblebee survey that Dr. Karen Goodell and Dr. Rady Mitchell oversaw several years ago, looking for the rusty patch bumblebee, which we didn't find in the state. But in addition to their research teams, graduate students, undergraduates scouring the state looking for the rusty patch, we recruited community scientists through iNaturalist. We started the Ohio Bee Atlas on iNaturalist and then trained some of these bee fans. How do you take those pictures? How do you get the attributes of the bee in the picture and upload those so that experts can come in and identify those and help make a map of where not just bumblebees but other bees are across the state. And so that was a 2-year project. It's still kind of ongoing. Any bee image that's taken, any observation in the state through iNaturalist gets uploaded into the Ohio Bee Atlas. So it's still a live and active project. But growing out of that, now there's an Ohio Bee survey, thanks to some grant dollars. And so we have a team led by Dr. Karen Goodell's lab out of OSU, looking across the state, trying to really identify, because we don't know how many bees we have here in the Buckeye State, maybe 450 species, maybe more. And so really trying to identify what are the bees out there. And then also using community scientists. We have a specialist bee survey that's happening as well. So helping community scientists know and identify those plants that the specialist bees will visit, and then observing and taking specimens from those plants, those bees visiting those plants, to clarify which specialist bees we have in the state. So, really thousands of people across the state who, to one degree or another, are involved with this idea of community scientists. And I have people email me and they're like, I'm not a community scientist. I shouldn't be going to the Bumblebee short course. I'm like, you are a community scientist. You're a member of the community. And, if you have a camera or an interest, you have flowers outside, you can definitely get involved. Let's find a way to tie you into this wider network. So kind of my overall goal is to help people take action, to do one thing. And I know with environmental issues, it can sometimes be overwhelming. There's so much to know and so much to do. How can I make a difference? It's almost futile, right? But no, just one thing. And so, is there one plant you can add? Is there a tree that you can plant? Is there an activity that you can take part in? Come to a workshop, come to a 3-day bee ID workshop if you're really into that. If take your skills to the next level and share those with other people, get them enthused about what you're doing, and help us spread the word. So again, thank you for having me come in and talk a little bit about what we're doing here in Ohio. My contact, ellsworth.2@osu, is my email. And again, the Bee Lab website, blab.osu.edu. And thanks so much.